Commissioners, we're transitioning in the Nashville Next project. As you know, we're well over a year into this, and we've got about a year and a half or so to go. Maybe not quite that much, but we're transitioning between phases 1 and 3. Phases 1 and 3 were the process where we basically solicited a lot of background information and priorities and all that. We're moving into phases 4 and 5, which will be the opportunity to discuss plan options and policy options and all that. We're kind of changing it. And so I felt like it was important for us at the beginning of your Planning Commission meeting to take no longer than 10 minutes each time to kind of bring an issue that will be here for you. I think it's the most effective way. Hopefully, we'll play that out by ear. And so I've asked Greg to just kind of start that today, which he's going to kind of bring you up to speed from our last meeting, and then set the stage for the next meeting where we'll talk a little bit about scenarios. So, Greg.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Claxton with the Planning Department. Like Rick said, what I'm going to try to do is walk through what we've been doing with Nashville Next since we gave you your last update, which I think your last full formal update was about a year ago, February 2013. We've been doing a wide range of activities since then, and I'm mostly trying to catch you up today. All right. As Rick said, we've got kind of a 3 to 5 phase process, depending on how you count. We had 3 rounds of public input this past year, doing a lot of visioning, figuring out what the community wants for the future of Nashville. That's what I'm going to focus on today, and then next time we'll talk about what we're working on right now with the alternatives and some policies. I'm going to focus on what we've been doing with the public, but you should know we've got a very vast and intricate and meeting-intensive internal process as well. We have 7 plan elements that we'll be looking at throughout the entire plan. Each one of those has a resource team composed of planning staff, department staff, community members, those sorts of folks. So far, we've had 26 meetings with those teams over the past year. We also have an active engagement committee that helps us stay engaged with all parts of the county. And then we have a steering committee that we meet with monthly to oversee, kind of keep us on track, make sure we're doing the plan as we need to be. So when we talked to you last time, we had just kicked off the process. We went into our first round of what we called blue sky visioning, asking the public what they wanted for Nashville's future, what they love about Nashville now, what they want improved. We did that alongside a series of national speakers. We had 6 then. We followed up with a couple more later in the year, where we had more than 1,000 people attend those, talking about cutting-edge planning ideas from across the country, as well as some research about Nashville in particular. We've also, throughout the past year, gone out to as many community meetings as we can, doing a thing that we call Book a Planner, where we go out, educate people about some of the trends that we're concerned about, that we've heard the community concerned about, tell them what we're doing with the plan, and then take their input. We've done about 90 of those so far, again, in the past year. Because we know that not everybody comes to meetings, we've also gone out to community events, just fairs, festivals, that kind of thing. We've done about 50 of those, and whenever we do one of those, we try to gather input as well. Through the first round, about 4 or 5 months of input, we gathered 8,000 ideas that people had for the future. We try to consolidate those down to 180 categories of things. And then we whittled those down even further to about 34 key ideas that seem to be coming up over and over and over again from the public. And so when we moved into our second round of input, we basically wanted to ask the public, what are your priorities? Out of these, what are the things that are most important to structure the plan around? Because that's an incredibly dull question, we try to come up with a way to make it a little bit more fun and engaging. And what we came up with was a meeting that we called Be the Next Mayor. We went around throughout different places in the county, and we had people work in tables together, coming up with not just what are their most important issues, but then what we called campaign platforms that show how they put those together and gave us, in their words, what do they want for the future. That was immensely productive. We had a lot of people participate in that. We had a lot of good, rich information, but we also know we didn't get to all of the different parts of the community that we want to have engaged in Nashville Next. So we added a new tool, something that we called street teams, where we would pick high traffic areas throughout the county, go out for a few hours, in particular high traffic areas that connect to demographic groups that we hadn't yet kind of involved as much as we'd like. We did surveying there. We got a lot of great information there as well on those 34 priorities. And so out of everything, the top 5 issues from about 3 or 4 months of surveying that came out was first, affordable living, second, transit, third, growing economy, and then walking in strong neighborhoods. And this is pretty consistent with what we heard in the first round of input, what we heard through preliminary community surveying that we did. We worked with our steering committee to develop a set of guiding principles, something to structure the rest of the plan around.
We had 3 assumptions, though, on the
Right.
the
Sure.
priorities. Yeah, I mentioned those, yeah.
Right.
They were givens.
So there were 3 givens that we had heard so much overwhelming support for, and kind of so core to what the plan does, that we wanted to get people past those into the other things. And those were efficient government, which is really what the plan is designed to be, safety, and education. So we took all of that, these issues, those 3, everything that we'd heard from the public so far, and worked with our steering committee to develop a set of guiding principles that are going to, intended to capture what the public wants for the future and shape the rest of the plan. These are kind of the headline version of those. I know we've sent them around to you a few times in the past. Each one has a few bullets of detail to sort of explain what we mean by Be Nashville, expand access, create opportunity. In our third round of input, we took these back to the public and said, okay, did this capture what you meant? Did we get this right? And so we asked people to rate it on a scale of 0 to 5. I do not want this future, to I want this future. And the results that we got were pretty strong, kind of mid-4s, upper 4s on everything. We also got some detailed comments, sort of open-ended stuff. We're working with the steering committee to tweak the guiding principles a little bit, that detail stuff. We don't expect any of these to change, but there were some things that seemed like they needed to be clarified. Overall, our sense is, from these results, from working with the public the last few months, this captures something real that the public wants for the future. And so this is what we're going to be relying on to shape the rest of the plan. At the same time that we were doing that, we also got into some of the spatial parts of the plan, kind of how we grow, what we preserve over the next 25 years. And so what we did was an activity where we gathered people again in 3 meetings around big maps, 8 foot by 8 foot wide, and asked people to help us allocate the growth that we're expecting. 100,000 new homes, 200,000 new people, 300,000 new jobs. And they had stickers, you can see them on the picture, that represent different combinations. This is kind of a downtown mixed use. This is an urban employment center. This is a suburban housing area. And we asked them to work together in groups to lay this out. And overall, we had more than 300 people complete 43 maps, which we're pretty excited by that turnout. We took a photo of each one. We put, in GIS, we put a point on a map for every sticker that we got. So you can kind of see that's an example of one table. And then that allows us to compile all those together and see where are the places that people are putting the most growth. This is an example of all of the population chips that we had from those 43 maps. And you can see some clear patterns. I'll talk through what those are in a moment. Meanwhile, we had an online survey as well, where we asked some general questions about how to accommodate growth, but then also opened it up in kind of a Google Map interface and said, give us points. Here's somewhere you'd like to preserve. Here's somewhere you'd like to grow. Overall, we got 1,300 preservation points in green, 2,400 growth points in red. And, kind of if you flip back and forth between these a little bit, you can see some similar patterns. Which we feel is, kind of lends legitimacy to what we've been doing. Wherever we go, however we phrase the question, we get, similar responses back. Some of our takeaways, first, very strong continued support for protecting Northwest Davidson County. Strong support for continued downtown development and intensification. Continued support for mixing uses in close proximity, not necessarily always in, literal mixed-use buildings, but, walking distance. Continued support for transit, and then support for areas identified by community plans. That was something that we seeded the maps at the meetings with, chips to show what the current community plans are. By and large, people left those in place, added to them, and didn't take them away. And then the last thing, as you all well know, is a nuanced and often polarized approach to infill. Some tables placed no infill, some did all of their population through infill, and here I mean residential infill in existing neighborhoods. But then we also were able to get some nuances, and so we want to use the next round to explore that a little bit. All told, across all of the rounds of public input that we've had so far, we've got 10,000 participants. Those numbers, kind of if you show up in multiple phases, you get counted multiple times. But what this tells us is that we're getting a pretty broad reach, a couple thousand people each time, but then also continued reach as people are participating over and over again. And both of those are important. So just a hint of what we'll be doing next time. Goals and policies. Each element will be developing these for review by the public starting in May. And then we're putting together a set of 3 to 4 scenarios that lay out kind of a vision for growth, how we would kind of align transportation, land use, and what the implications are for the other elements. And these are both part of the package that we'll bring to the public in May through July to review and assess. Thank you.
Hopefully this will at least kind of get you caught up to speed where we are, and we'll go through next time. We'll talk a little bit more about the scenarios and as we work our way through that, the resource team. So we try to bring you a little bit each meeting.